Hi, Joyce Erb, guest designer for Cut at Home, where you'll see crafting tips for people with hand challenges and lots of other techniques and products are explored. Today we're going to be using the Heartfelt Creations Tropical Hibiscus stamp set. It will stamp all 4 of the flowers at one time. We're using 80-pound weight layering cardstock in white. And I'm going to use something similar to an embossing buddy. This is a piece of felt with powder in it. You can also make your own using baby powder, and it's to remove the static from the page because we're going to be using an embossing ink. So I will position the stamp on my paper and then close the lid on my positioner to pick it up. And using the Versamark, which is a sticky embossing ink, I will give the stamp a good coat. It's really hard to see Versamark on your page to see if you've got a good coverage, especially when you're doing a larger image. So I like to make sure it's got a lot of ink. And I also apply a good bit of pressure to try and ensure that I get all the spots. I will actually repeat this process and do it a second time just to be sure. This is a piece of folded copy paper that I use to catch the excess embossing powder, and I liberally sprinkle it over and tap it off. This is Ranger Platinum Ultra Fine, and it covers beautifully and embosses beautifully. So I put the remainders back in the jar, and then off screen I will emboss it. And this is what it turned out. There's one little spot that I burnt, which won't affect the project. And I also did it in red using Ranger Sparkle Red. I wasn't sure which color I wanted, so I thought I'd try them both. And I will use the coordinating dies for the flower, which also cuts everything out in one pass. And it's on the edge blade, so what you see in the center when you position it is exactly how it'll cut. And I make sure I put tape on the top and bottom. Now this is the leaves that I stamped and colored. My flowers came out, so I wanted to show you the leaves, how you color them before you die cut them. And this is my test one. I'm using a color box stylus. This works the best for me. And I'm just adding some additional highlights in the center where the veining is with the side of the stylus. And I also am trying to see if I like the distress marker in the, I don't remember what color this is. Christmas pine? No, it's not pine. It's one of the Christmas colors. I can't remember the name. The lighter color is cracked pistachio. But I don't like it. It's too defined. Now, if it was on watercolor paper and I was going to blur it some, that'd be a different story, but this isn't. So I'm just going to take the side of the stylus. Here I'm testing to see if it'll smear, but not enough. So I'm going to use the side of the stylus and add my additional color that way. Just darken up the veins a little bit just to give it a little bit more definition. Now we're using tattered straw. And picked raspberry. Picked raspberry is one of my favorite colors. And still using the stylus, I'm going to dip it in. And I'm starting from the centers where I want the concentration of color. And with these styluses, if you go in the same direction, one way, the foam pads will last longer. If you go back and forth or in a circle, they seem to tear them up. And the foam pads run approximately $1 each, so I take care of them. So I'm just pulling out the color. I want this one to be predominantly pink. I did another one when I was playing, and I didn't bring it out far enough, and the yellow actually made it look peachy. But I took the colors out of the focal image, which I'll show you in a moment, and I wanted it to match the fish. I apologize, my hands cover a lot of what I'm doing at this stage. I will be doing some heavy editing when it comes to shaping these flowers because my hands cover up too much of it. Then using the color box stylus again, I'll take the tattered straw and just get the ink the edges. This goes pretty quickly. If you have a hard time holding the little tools, you should give this a try. They're wonderful. The little sponges that go on your fingertips don't work for me. My middle finger gets in the way. It won't let me make contact with the paper. So I will be coloring the rest of them off camera, and then the next thing we'll do is we will shape the flower. I use the mat and the tools from the Heartfelt Creations tool package or tool kit, deluxe flower shaping kit. And I'll turn the flowers upside down. I'm going to spritz the back very lightly with water to make the shaping a little bit easier. You don't want to get it too wet, otherwise you can tear your paper. So I use a Tim Holtz sprayer. You can't really see too much here. I have to hold it next to me to spray. It looks like I'm putting on a lot, but I'm not. I tap some of the water off so that it's not too wet. Then taking the largest ball from the toolkit, I'm pushing with a lot of pressure. For me, it takes 2 hands to push. And I'm going 3-4 times across the top. See how it's all nice and frilly looking? And I won't be doing the ruffling of the petals. So I make sure that I get the edges real well so that it looks like it's ruffled. And I go about halfway down. And the process is the same on the smaller flowers, except you use a smaller stylus. And the size of the end depends on which size flower you're using. For the large one, and I think even for the middle one, I believe I used the big one. Then you push down in the center real hard. I push and twirl. And the stamen, I get it near the base right there. That will make it really stand up. And I realized after I shaped it that you're going to be able to see the back of the stamen. So I do go back and color that, but it'd be easier if it was colored ahead before you did the shaping. Once I color it, I come back and push in the center again just to make sure I've got the shape that I want. Now for the leaf, I use the large ball again, and I'm pushing in the center, mostly in the center and towards the top, and also at the base, so it's a whole up and down the center. and flip it over, and right at the base of the stem, I give it a good push. That gives it a little more dimension. Now this is our pieces for the card. I did a layout. Now the white, I didn't think I liked it. I did, but it was too stark of a white for this focal image. I cut this from the paper pack, Heartfelt Creations collection. And I did the frames with this Spellbinder Nestability Labels 8 dies. I used the large one and the second largest one. To test my color, I did it on the back side to see if I liked it and if it went well with the papers I had selected. So we're going to start putting it together, and I've got some burlap ribbon from my stash. And it's a good heavy, I cut it out of 110 Nina Solar. I like my frames to be sturdy. And I fussy cut this to fit. I traced around the stencil, or the die, and then cut it out. That's the front side. So we're going to practice on the back. And I just took a little bit. I'm just doing the edges and in just a tad for where the paper won't cover. So I'm going to do all the edges on the front side for the small and the large piece. And this is one of those large sponge daubers that I put in Amazon. I think it came from my Kindle adapter. Fit in there perfectly. It makes a nice handle for me to be able to use this dauber. And it's used exclusively for doing the edges with vintage photo ink when I want to do my distressing. In fact, it's time to replace the dauber. I have worn it out. And off screen, I will distress all the edges with this color and finish it up. That's a Tombow permanent adhesive, and I will run a line of it to attach the burlap ribbon. Here I'm looking for the placement. I want it kind of in the center of where it's going to be positioned. I'm positioning the layers up towards the top so I have room for a sentiment on the bottom. Can't even see the runner in my hand, but the runner is in my hand. And not being sure if that alone was going to hold that ribbon. This is your dries as clear glue. Now, I've got the fine tip on here, and it's my favorite glue. It will adhere almost anything, but the best part for me is I can actually squeeze this one. I have a whole stash of different glues, and depending on how I'm doing each day, but even on my weakest days, this one I can at least get something out. Now I'm going to put glue mostly on the edges here. I'm having a little trouble today squeezing it, but I do get enough on there. Why I like a liquid glue compared to a tape glue is that it gives me some wiggle room. So if I'm a little bit crooked, I can shift it. Like that. So I adhere it all down. The decorative layer on top of it, I'm also going to adhere flat. I've already got the glue on the back of it. Then the next layer, the next frame, I've got pop dots all on the back of it. And I'm going to adhere that in the middle of it all. Now we're going to enhance and embellish the focal point. Well, not quite yet. I'm going to do a dry run on what flowers I think I might want to use. And I decide on the big, the middle, and one small. And 2 leaves. I'm going to have room in that right bottom corner to put a small sentiment, which you'll see in the final photo. I decided to make a double layer for the large hibiscus and also keep both stamens. So I'm just positioning it to where I think I want it. And I'm going to use the foam mat from the toolkit to help maintain the shape of my flower. And I squirt some glue in the center, put a good little amount in there. And I position the second flower, and using my stylus, I hold it into place once it cooperates with me. I'm trying to stagger the leaves so they don't go on top of each other. And then give it a good push and hold it for a moment so that the glue grabs. Now what I did here was I added glue to the stamen and the center in little dots. And I'm applying frills, and this is Go Man Go. I took that video out because my hands were totally in the way and you couldn't see. So I just put on big dollops of glue on each of the little dots on the stamen. And now what I'm doing is I'm adding glue to the coral in the image. See, there's no red anymore. I'm using ruby. And what this is Flower Soft. Flower Soft it'll be dimensional. It's like really fine pieces of foam, and this particular color has glitter in it, but it will actually give it some dimension. I put a lot on and press down to get it into the glue. You could actually give it a second application if you want. And I simply brush it off, and it is on copy paper, so I'll just dump the excess back, and you'll see a little bit better once it dries. Now I've got a Wink of Stella, shake it up. I make sure that I've got fluid in the tip, and I'm coloring the entire fish with the Wink of Stella. It just gives it a really nice shimmer and makes the color of the fish pop a little bit. I will also add it to the turtle and the shells. Just gives a little glimmer. Now this is Wink of Stella Clear. It does come in colors, but I've never used the colors. I've got them, but they're neglected. I love the clear. The coral will look better once it dries, but here's the fish. I think you caught a little bit of the glimmer there. And we'll finish the card and I'll show it to you. This is the finished project. I mounted it on a piece of cardstock, 7 inches by 10 inches and scored at 5. I cut out the smallest die from the Spellbinders Labels 8 and mounted You Inspire Me from the Heartfelt Wishes stamp set. Well, I hope you enjoyed the project today, and remember that you can find all the products used today at the Cut at Home website. You'll find links to everything I used at my blog at Cut at Home. Have a great day.